Hey you, welcome to the podcast. My name is David. Hope you're doing well today. And we'll get right into the episode, just in one quick minute. I'd like to thank everyone who's donated to the Patreon page for this podcast. Those people are currently receiving some extra benefits that everyone else is not. If that entices you to check it out. There's a small interview with me. My friend Cal did. There's a couple readings, rather, of some blog posts that I wrote. There's a behind-the-scenes video where I take you through what it's like to be a guest on this podcast, which is basically just a tour of my bedroom. And the final thing you get is next week's episode a week early. So if you check that out and go on to patreon.com/thinkingwithdavid, you'll find next week's episode. All right, you guys. Well, let's get right into it. Had a lot of fun with this guest. Her name's Cristina Schooler. And Cristina has built herself a small business of leading retreats, outdoor retreats, for whoever would like to get involved. She's local here in Austin. But I can imagine that if she sticks with it, and she has quite the vision for her business, that before long she may be expanding to more areas, so she might be coming to your town. But yeah, this was a really great conversation. Christina's done a lot of research on the benefits of being outdoors, the benefits of sleep, and how that's changed her life. And yeah, so this is very much a fun, energy-filled conversation. Cristina is filled with an abundance of energy, and that comes across in the podcast, and I'm very grateful that there's someone to balance out my flatlined energy or... I wouldn't say that, but yeah, it's always very nice talking to Cristina, and I think you guys will really enjoy this episode. All right, so without further ado, here's Cristina.
But yeah, I think that when I was interviewing with that guy about kind of brain before body, is I think that, we're animals and we want immediacy, so we think being physical is will immediately gratify us. And it does. We climb, when we go climbing at ABP, it's we climb up, finished it. And that's the easy part. Climbing is the easy part. Yeah. But getting yourself there and, getting yourself primed, priming your brain to get into the habits, because I think that's where people don't want to do the work, and they don't want to acknowledge what they're trying to change. And they just want to kind of mask it with, okay, well, if I go pick up a weight, or if I go, run a mile, then I'm changing. And I'm not discrediting that at all. But I think that,
I see.
Do you see what I'm saying?
You're saying that people are placing more importance on the physical aspect of things, okay, rather than the mental.
Right. Actually, because I think it takes a tremendous amount of self-reflection and time to be still with yourself. And, I've talked about that, to really think about, okay, what am I doing wrong? Or not even wrong. What do I really want to work on? Okay. For me, being so honest and introspective, my 2 glasses of wine a night, a few years ago before I stopped drinking. And I was why am I doing that? And I was oh, well, everyone else is doing it. You just start making up these stories. I'm oh, I'm healthy. I eat well. I kept making up excuses, before I faced it. And
there was brief studies that came out too, saying, yeah, a glass of wine is good for you. like right before
Totally.
bed.
Oh, I did that shit
And so,
all the
like,
time.
people, yeah.
I was like, oh, well, I'm a trainer and I'm lifting and, you know, I'm doing all the things so I can have 2 glasses of wine. But then, like, on stressful days, it turned into 3 glasses of wine.
Oh, yeah. It got out of control.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, and I think that's what's so important is, like, whatever substance or habit you choose to abstain from, that's your personal choice and your personal journey. Some people, like, I think it's really negative in groups. You see all these, like, extremists that say no alcohol, no gluten, no dairy, no soy, none of it.
Yeah.
And if you do it, you're evil. You know, it's like, fuck that. Like, we all come from different cultural backgrounds, different, like, respective places. I think it's just more being 100% honest with yourself about what that is. And for me, and I don't know if, you know, we're both from Dallas, if you can relate to this, but I think we grew up in a very privileged party culture.
Yeah.
As a city, like I'm saying as a more macro, we are probably exposed in controlled environments to alcohol very young. And, you know, that stuff sits with you as you get into college, as you graduate from college, those habits that you just don't realize are a part of what you're used to and what you see day to day. And for me, it took me a long time to get honest with myself about that and how it had been ingrained in me and then breaking that habit, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Like, what did that require for you then? Like, I imagine was it like an overnight thing, or has this been a longer journey for you?
Oh, it's a longer journey, but the more trends I see over the years, and especially since I've been, I think in almost 2 years, I haven't had a drop of alcohol, like a drop.
Wow.
And I think that the biggest thing, David, and I wonder if you agree with this, for me, is environment. Who you surround yourself with, and then what you see day to day. So, for example, like, have you read the Cone Marie, the magical art of tidying up?
Oh, so I haven't. So actually, this has been brought up in a couple podcasts now. It's like such a powerful book.
Everyone listening,
wow.
y'all should read this book. It's that was a big catalyst to my journey because kind of the initial thought of things and substances don't make me happy or give me self-worth.
Yeah.
And I'm smiling now because I think I just tied that all together because over the course of the last year and a half, I have gotten rid of probably 10 trash bags, sold a lot of things, like just very minimal. Like I have,
wow,
and I don't, again, I think there's a lot of buzzwords today, like minimal and like eco-friendly and like conscious and, you know, all those words. And it's not about being minimal. It's not about throwing everything away. It's about being honest about what this like attachment you have with something or some substance, and is it healthy?
Yeah.
And that's only for you to decide.
Totally. Yeah, and I know, like, one thing that Marie Kondo said, is that her name, Marie Kondo?
I'm probably butchering. It's like
something like
Marie Kondo, I don't know.
is that it's like minimalism is less about shedding things and more about creating space for more of what you love.
Absolutely.
Right? And so, like,
wow, yes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But for your journey, like in particular, like I don't know. I think there are some like stereotypes, like females have like a lot. They need a lot, right?
Totally.
They gather shoes and hoard clothes.
Yeah.
And so, how has that been for you? Like overcoming that and like seeing value on the other side.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny that you say that because I'm sure many women like me who love nature and love hiking in the outdoors would say, oh, well, we already don't buy a lot. You know, I analyze myself as like, well, I'm not like those girls that wear high heels and stuff, but fuck that. I still had a lot of shit I didn't need, you know? Like, I still had to take a hard look at myself. I was still like buying things just because I wanted to make myself look good in certain environments, even around my friends.
Oh, I like clothing?
Yeah, clothing, not even like anything. It could be like, you know, eyeliner, or it could have been a pair of shoes or something, but it was still that perception of like, why does something new and shiny have to define my worth in a group? And getting over that, I don't know, I kept seeing patterns. I was like, I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I wasn't feeling open. I was feeling very anxious all the time, everywhere in my life. My job, my friends, even though I had a great friend, like I just always felt this sense of like anxiousness, like what's next, that high. Like, what's next? Okay, cool. Is it the shoes? Is it the glass of wine? Is it my workout? Is it me climbing a mountain? I mean, that's definitely my personality and part of like my journey. But when I started getting rid of things, my heart got fuller. And I was like, okay, I'm on to something. So I think it's a continual journey with that. But I will say the more I am outdoors in groups, whether that's with my friends or with my clients, or I'm outside alone, or I'm cooking with people that believe, on the same wavelength as me. Like, I just feel like the more I'm honest with myself and I put myself in those environments with the people I love, like, I don't want anything else. I just want to be where I am.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. I was telling Cristina, my best friend, Cristina, the other day, I was like, do you just like this week kind of feel like you're high? Like, and she was like, yeah. And I was like, why is that? And we were both talking about being in alignment with our friends and our jobs and the way that we just work in this world that we've been taught to not work. We've been taught to live a certain way. And once you realize you don't have to, you become free in a sense. I don't know if you can relate to that with like your journey.
Yeah, I mean, I want to take it back because I think what you said is so cool.
Oh yeah.
Like you're beginning to discover kind of what it is that you love to do and the environments in which you thrive, and it seems like you're creating a life with that as the centerpiece and attempting to build something around that. And so I think it would be cool to get into kind of your journey with like forming the Rooted Method.
For sure.
And like what that is exactly and what do you see it becoming? Or maybe you don't even get there yet.
Okay,
just like, yeah. How did it start?
So I would say that's a great question. And I hope that I get so excited about this. So I hope I'm articulate. But it really started, I think, with me wanting to surround myself with the people that I was looking for. So it was at a transition when I was really getting into the like no drinking, minimalist, like really exploring that, like really getting into the throes of that life.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
A little over a year. So that, yeah.
Oh, this was recent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'd been almost a year, sober, but like really, I was really getting into the groove of it, if you will. But I was still missing like, where are these people that like are similar to me? Yeah. Because I was doing a lot of hiking alone, in Alaska and Idaho and Texas. And then I started I was with my clients. Prior to starting my business, I worked in corporate wellness.
Sorry, when you went and hiked alone, what were you doing? Like, what were you...
Where?
Well, like where, but also, like, what was it that you were searching for? Or like, did you just want to be alone and like figure things out? Like, what was the purpose of going alone? Yeah.
Hiking alone allows me to be a child. Because this also may sound crazy. In my most honest of spirits, I think I am a child. Like, I'm that child that was born in nature and should still be there. And I feel, I mean, guys, I promise I'm not on anything right now. Like, I feel like like, that's my purpose in life, is to be a child and show people that in the best sense, in the most authentic sense of how humans should live. So when I go into nature by myself, the purpose is reminding myself that it's okay to be a child and that we all can be children in in the most beautiful way. The honesty, the wide-eyed starriness of looking at the world, the creativity, the urge to explore. Like, it feels 100% natural for me when I'm alone, and I can literally, if I want to, be naked. Wow. Yeah. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that was great. Discovering that inner child I think, in playing.
Playing.
Play.
There's a great book about play.
Really? What is it?
It's called like The Art of Play. And then the subhead is something like how adults become stronger, more creative, happier by playing like children. Like the science behind it. I'll make sure to send you a link about it later.
No, I'd love to check that out, because one dude I've been following has been talking about that a little bit. His name's Jordan Peterson. And I bring him up on every podcast, so I should probably stop. But he's a clinical psychologist, and one thing he discusses is the play mechanism in children. And then if it's suppressed at a young age, that it's very hard to bring play into their later life. And so, like, play, imagination, these things are so important. And, like, in your experience, do you think that was suppressed at all? Or do you think you're just continuing to live that out?
No, I mean, that's a really great question. And that's awesome. That's an awesome piece of data to know, because I believe it. I was just thinking about some of my friends and family members. But I got really lucky with entrepreneurial parents who love the outdoors. And here I am doing this exact same thing. But I think that what was hard for me, I definitely never felt my creativity suppressed. But I mean, my parents did come from like more formal West Texas small town backgrounds like Amarillo and Midland. But they definitely... I could even see growing up their conflicted ideals, because they did want to push the creativity and the travel, but also live this kind of relative reserved life. So it's kind of a conflict. I think an inner conflict for them sometimes. But I don't feel that I was suppressed, no. My mom is a designer. I mean, she went to journalism school and then went to grad school for art. So my brother and I were always encouraged to do art and write and speak. And I hands down agree. I mean, I definitely agree that that's part of how it's allowed me to be creative today, but I do not think that it means if you didn't have that growing up that you can't have it now. You know, again, it's just that journey. You might have to work a little harder to know that it's okay to be a child and to be creative. And I've talked to people who, you know, when they accepted that they also felt liberated. So it's definitely possible if you haven't had it.
Yeah. Wow.
How do you feel about that? Like, do you feel that your creativity was suppressed growing up, or?
No.
No?
I don't think so. Yeah, no, like you, I feel like I've lived a very cushy life, like very privileged, very blessed. And I've always been supported in whatever endeavors that I want to pursue. It seems I have a family unit and friends supporting me. Yeah,
me too.
Yeah, it's very nice. But I do want to get back to you and like your journey starting Rooted Retreats. And so you had been doing travels for a while.
Correct.
And one thing I want to get into, like, how long ago was China?
Yeah.
You spent a long time in China.
I did. And I'm actually going back for contract work this summer.
Really?
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay, yeah.
So I spent a year and 6 months living and working in China. And I did it about a year after I graduated from college. And I went there to work in corporate wellness. So I worked for a company called Education First, and I taught kinesthetic English language learning programs. So that means using language, but also our bodies to teach, which is like what I get jacked up and excited about.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it was kind of a 9-to-5 job. I mean, I worked weird hours, but it was still more corporate than I had anticipated. So I was wearing, you know, it was weird. I wear like a kind of a semi-suit to work, but then change into exercise clothes and then teach English. And, you know, yeah, I mean, I loved it though. And I mean, and while I was there, when I wasn't working, I was hiking. I mean, I lived in Beijing and I would take the bus. I think I still remember it was like the 303 bus, $4, and it went outside the city. And I would literally hop on the Great Wall of China and just hike around.
Wow.
And I camped on the Great Wall of China. I went to unrestored sections of the Great Wall where a lot of people don't go. So kind of hiking and exploring the towns around the unrestored sections of the Great Wall kind of became my weekend adventure. And then I started taking people with me. I started taking my coworkers.
So you've always had this.
Always.
Like, yeah.
Always.
This desire to bring people into nature with you.
Always.
Okay.
Actually probably my whole life.
Yeah.
And my mom tells stories when I was little, even when I was like 10 years old. When we'd be in Colorado, I'd be the one organizing all the cousins. I have a big family, being like, guys, let's go build a stream. Let's go climb Crystal Mountain. Like, I've always felt like I want to bring people together in nature, for sure.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when did you begin to make that official, like with your business and whatnot? Like, how was it getting your first client?
Yeah, absolutely. So like any business that you start, made tons of mistakes, tons. So I've actually owned my business now for a little over a year. Like it's been a year and a month.
Congrats.
But my first actual trip out. So when I did the got my LLC, purchased it, registered it. It took me about 2 months until I actually took a group out.
Okay.
And honestly, that was just out of fear. I was like, why would people pay me to take them out? Is that who cares? Who cares? And once I got rid of that notion, I just started kind of talking to a couple of my former personal training clients, and they were my first group. I took 4 of them out when was it? Last end of March, I think. Or actually beginning of April, maybe this time. And they were my first 4. That was my first rooted method camping trip that I took them to McKinney Falls State. No, not McKinney Falls. Colorado Bend State Park.
And was it called Rooted Method at the time?
No.
What was it? Had you named it?
No.
It's just like, let's go hang out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get feedback from them, about what they liked and what they didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I was actually there, and I started thinking, I kind of had like a root theme in mind, just because I've always loved trees, and I believe in our connections, and trees actually talk to each other, and they have brains. And so the Rooted Method just came to me one evening, and I was like, I'm going to call it that.
Wow.
I didn't really think about it.
Well, no, it sounds like you didn't need to. The intuition just came.
It did.
Wow. Okay. And so, I just think this is such a cool idea, because when I was on the trail, when I was on the PCT, the mind's crazy, right? So I'm just like constantly thinking about the future, thinking about the past as well, but a lot of what am I going to do next? And this was one of my ideas that arose, like, how can I build this into my life and lead hikes, for instance, or lead camps. And so I looked into it for a little while, and there was some challenges up front. I was posting on Facebook groups, getting feedback, what do you guys think about this idea? And they were like, no, it's unsafe. No one's going to do this with you. You need all this insurance. And so what was that like for you, overcoming those initial barriers?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's definitely a concern, because the biggest, with taking people out on these camping trips, liability is everything. I will say that the way that I structure my business now, and I probably will for a while, is I'm really minimizing risk as much as possible in the outdoors. So we are not backpacking, for number one. We're camping, hiking out, coming back. Okay. So, that takes a lot of the risk away, and the level of insurance that you need, because we're not mountaineering. And when you get to the technical, being on a glacier or mountaineering where there's scree and stuff, that's when the insurance gets really jacked up. So maybe when you ask, and I don't know what you were trying to do, they may not have understood, because that insurance and liability is way different. Okay. So I have a basic outdoor recreation insurance, and I started there. And I honestly, I kind of asked around. I was researching and found a couple people who said this will work for what you're doing right now. So I bought that. And then, I just looked over what to put in waivers. I asked a lawyer. But, it's funny, and I think looking back, it's one of those things for anyone out there who's listening and thinking about becoming a small business owner. It's often those kind of little details much easier than you think. Truly. It may cost you some, but it's still not don't let those little details of like, I don't know what the fuck liability insurance, like I didn't know anything before. You know, it's not as difficult as you think. And I think a lot of people have the perception that all these little details are harder than they are.
Okay.
And, you know, I added it as a step. You know, it wasn't like I had all my ducks in a row. I was very cautious my first few groups, because I think in the last year in total, I've taken out 8 groups. 8.
Nice.
And my first 2 were very, it was very cautious. I mean, we went on like a 2-mile hike, you know, it was just very, very cautious. But once I, you know, really had them look over forms and sign, and I just trusted my guy. I knew what I was doing. You know, you know when a situation is dangerous or not. And I'm not putting any of my clients right now in those, you know, really technical backpacking or mountaineering situations. We're still having a hard ass hike, you know, but not as much liability.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So how do you think this business is going for you right now? Like, in terms of, like, I know the desire is always for things to grow faster than they really are growing. And I think that's kind of just like a trap, like an illusion, like to get sucked into, right? So yeah, how do you think this is going for you?
I love that you asked that question and you brought it up, because again, I think it is so important for people who are in this stage of their life to be honest, guys, like when I started, I wanted it to go real fucking fast. I'm an Energizer bunny and I wanted it now. And you know, I mean, I was just like, whoa, like, let's go. And now that I'm a little over a year in, I'm taking a huge step back. I'm going way slower and it feels so much better because you want your quality and your energy, your quality of the work and the product and the service you're creating, and the energy and sanity to remain in the state that you can control. And guess what? If you go too fast too soon, you're going to spend way too much fucking money. You are going to have a lot of people telling you opinions that you don't need to hear. You're going to say yes too much instead of saying no. Learning to say no is so critical in business.
Yeah.
You're going to have people who are excited. You're going to have people who think that they know your industry when they don't. And tell you what to do, like I'm sure you might have experienced when you had the idea. We're quick to lend and take advice that sometimes, you know, doesn't serve us well when we feel rushed.
Yeah.
So I definitely, absolutely am in a stage of long-term growth. So, you know, I have my business right now, but it's not my full-time gig. I still do contract work. Like I still do, like this summer I'm going to China for 6 weeks to work for a summer camp it's a startup to teach teenagers, Chinese teenagers, mind, body, soul, movement awareness in English. Yeah.
What is that? What is mind, body, soul awareness?
It's called U-Motion, the camp. It's a startup. So it's really neat. I mean, they're adopting kind of like East meets West, holistic, outdoor education, but coupling that with English learning. So it's all done in English by people like me, counselors, or I'm more being like the operations manager there. It's all done in English. So not only are they hearing, they're moving. I mean, it's everything that I believe in and how we all also connect across cultures. But, you know, anyway, I mean, I'm stepping back because I want my business to be here in 10 years. I want it to be here in 20 years. And I don't know how it's going to evolve, but I know that if I take it slow and, you know, don't put all my eggs in one basket to rely on, you know, me supporting myself through that, then I can have some more contract work. And, you know, they can equally support each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Things take time.
They do. And it's, I think there are some industries that can deal with quick growth, but I think service-based industries, you know, where you are any sort of service-based industries, I think it's relationship building, it's trust. It takes time.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I'm super happy for you.
Thank you. And I'm happy for you.
Thank you. Well, let's see what I've got here. Yeah. Have you ever entered any like sketchy times? Like, I mean, you've done a lot of traveling, you've done a lot of hiking.
Yeah.
Like any bear encounters or wild animal. Yeah. Like
totally. I mean, I have, when I was in, China, me and my group almost got arrested on the Great Wall of China because someone in our group illegally made a fire when I told them not to. So that was fun, being almost detained in China and using my limited Chinese. But in terms of like wildlife, when I last summer, no, 2 summers ago now, wow, I went to Alaska by myself for 10 days. And I backpacked throughout.
What?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah. Damn. I went to Denali National Park by myself and got a backcountry permit and went 3 days in the backcountry by myself. That's the most wild experience I've had.
Yeah.
Truly, like, no one else. Me and the berries and the bears in the, in the tundra for 3 days. I think my parents are going to like have a conniption. No, but it was amazing. But I mean, I literally was picking berries one day and quarter-mile away, grizzly and baby.
What?
Now, they were far enough to where like I saw them and could like make the decision like, okay, I'm going to turn around and go that way. They weren't close enough for it, but if I had like, hung around a little longer, things could have gotten dicey. Yeah. And then I went kayaking in the south, and there were black bears all on the beach where we were, and they're way less aggressive than grizzlies.
Yeah, they're chill.
So they were chill. I mean, they didn't we weren't messing with them. They weren't messing with us.
Yeah, I've heard some pretty crazy stories about grizzlies.
Really?
Well, nothing too bad, right? But there's this one dude I follow who like hikes everywhere, and his encounters with grizzlies, he'll say that he'll see a grizzly in the distance, and it'll see him, and it'll just start darting towards him.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Like thinking that he's prey, right? And so it'll just like start barreling towards him, like over the river too. Like
because with grizzlies, you do not want to run away. Like if you make eye contact with a grizzly, that's threat for them. You actually like if you make eye contact, you should like get down and cover your neck.
Yeah. Well, so what this guy
what did he do?
He said he just stands there. He just stands there, looks him in the eye, and so this thing's coming barreling at him, and then at the last moment, the grizzly just stops, and like they'll just realize like, oh, this is not prey. And so it'll just like turn around. But I was just like imagining myself in that position, like, oh, I think I'm gonna die.
Right, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's crazy. Where was he?
I think he was like Canada, like
gosh.
deep in the Canada wilderness. I don't know. But yeah, do you think there'd be like a coolest way to die in the wilderness? Like, if you had to go, yeah.
I've actually thought about that for sure. I feel like that's a great question. I feel like if I had to go, welcome guys to how you're gonna die in the wilderness. I think if I had to go, I think I'd want it to be from like a quick swipe bear attack, like one where I'm not suffering, like a big claw on my face,
maybe
seriously,
just a hug. It's just like a hug, a big hug.
Or it'd be like, I don't know. Honestly, I'd rather die from an animal than like walk off a cliff.
Yeah.
I really would.
I don't know.
But I want it to be quick.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I'd want it to be quick. Yeah. And what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone wants to be suffering like for hours, just like bleeding out. Yeah, I don't know. I did have a moment on the trail where a bear came, and I was very scared. I was like alone.
Yeah.
And
like how far away?
I was like sniffing me. Like, yeah.
Wait, is this a joke?
No.
Wait, tell me about this. Sorry, guys. I want to hear. Wait, what?
Yeah, I was just like alone. Like
a black bear, brown bear?
I don't know.
Probably black.
I don't know. Good question.
But I feel like it would be black.
Yeah, and I wasn't necessarily like I wasn't just me, but I was sleeping away from the group, kind of, and so I could hear these like footsteps, like thud, 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 and like going around me. I could feel its like shadow like creeping over me, and yeah, I just like froze. I just froze. I was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna stay here.
Were you in like a bivy sack, or like what were you?
I was just in a sleeping bag.
Yeah.
No shelter, so I was just like out in the open, and Yeah, eventually I think so here's what I did. I convinced myself that I was going to scream.
Okay.
Like I was going to zip out of my bag and like sit up and scream. And so I unzipped it. I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And so I like do it and I get up and I'm about to scream and there's like nothing around me. So there's nothing there. And so it was super weird. It was super weird. And so I wonder like, was there a bear or not? And I could like hear it sniffing me. Like it sounded so real. Right. And I'm like looking around with my flashlight. There's like no footprints. And so I'm like, okay, maybe this was a dream. But like, I still can't put together, like I can't put together if it was reality or a dream. And I think like I did have some crazy dreams on the PCT, like just sleeping outside,
no,
you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And so I think I was
especially
like,
when you're alone.
Mm-hmm. So I think I was like stuck in some like realm in between like dream and wake.
Oh my
and yeah,
God.
I do think it was a dream. But
Really?
yeah, it felt like it was real. It felt like it was real.
Hey, it could have been a bear spirit.
It could have been.
Seriously?
Maybe he was looking over me.
Yeah, maybe it was your totem.
Wait, what's a totem?
Like the spirit, like your animal guide that like guides you along.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'd be nice to have the bear as a guide. Yeah. Well, cool, Christina. Another thing I wanted to talk to you about, because like you're such a bright, like energetic personality.
Oh, that's so nice.
Well, you are filled with energy.
True.
Like literally, you are filled with it. And how do you maintain like a balance between pursuit of just go, right? And then like self-care. Like how do I take a step back and like just take care of myself right now? Like I don't need to, like, do you feel like you're putting on a show with the energy sometimes with people, or do you feel like this is just coming out of me like naturally?
It's a really good question, a really honest question. I do think that I, for the most part, have been just an energetic person my whole life.
Yeah.
Like a very high energy person. But I was telling my friend the other day, what happens to me though is if I don't take care of myself, is I have that energy like crazy, and then I have major crashes.
Yeah.
Like shut the world out, lock the doors, like, you know, go watch a Netflix documentary by yourself, you know, or write in my journal. You know, but I do think that I was trying, so basically the last year, until about 6 months ago, 6 months into my business, I kind of felt that. I felt that almost like manic energy, where it was like, I'd go in these like week-long spurts of, and I don't know where, like work, and then be like, what, like shut the world off for a day. And I was like, this is not sustainable. This is not healthy. So, I mean, it sounds so crazy, and I'm going to sound so cliche, but really it came down to water and sleep.
Wow.
I mean, that's it for me. And I think that we all need more tools to figure out how we can sleep sounder and fall asleep quicker. And there's lots of tools. And I'm sure you have lots. I'd actually love to talk to you about that sometime. But for me...
Oh, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
but
go
this is
ahead.
like one of the first things we talked about when we met.
We did. Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's so true. We talked about sleep.
Yeah. So this is going full circle. Okay.
Isn't that funny? But
Yeah.
seriously, I mean, when I actually really sleep and like take time to like prep myself for that, and then drink a shit ton of water, and I use lemon. I often drink lemon water. Like my life changes. I feel more, it's simple. Like I just feel more even keel. I feel that my energy isn't as like spiky.
Yeah.
And I feel more in control of my life in general. Truly. I don't attribute it to more than that. Like I think that when you are really, because the thing is, and I come from like a training background, so I get really geeky about this, especially from like the mind. When you aren't sleeping, you are putting your body into an artificial super stress response. You're putting your cortisol like in overdrive in your body. So your body's already in this state of stress. And so it's going to focus on the perceived stress and not the other bodily functions, like regulating your hormones, regulating the amount of fat and muscle in your body. So all those things, you know, if you aren't sleeping, it's that trickle down effect. Guess what? You're tired and your hormones are out of whack, so you're going to eat all the sugar. And do you see what I'm saying?
The cycle,
it's
yeah.
the cycle.
The negative feedback loop.
It's the negative feedback loop. It's the trickle down. And guess what? If you're not drinking enough water, I mean, your cells can't do their job. If your cells can't do their job, your hormones are fucked. You're not going to sleep. You know, it's that cyclical nature. I think that one of the best things that people can do, you know, before they do anything with their food or exercise, anything. I mean, I think that you agree too. We've talked like
this is big.
Water and sleep.
Yeah.
Because none of it will, honestly, I truly believe none of it will matter long term if you aren't sleeping.
Yeah.
I really strongly believe that.
Yeah. And I'm really glad I listened to this one podcast actually before our conversation. Okay. So I'd highly recommend everyone listen to Joe Rogan's podcast with this dude. I forget his name. His name might be Matthew Walker. Mm-hmm. I'd have to look it up, but he's a sleep expert and a neuroscientist. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it just blew my mind. And really, like, I had been dealing with some sleep issues in that I had expectations for my sleep. Like, oh, I should not be sleeping this much.
Me too.
Is something that I was telling myself.
Same.
And I would beat myself up over that and then cause more suffering on top of that, like layer on layers of just negativity. And once I accepted, like, oh, sleep, like so there's a, like, how important sleep is for our lives, like, it just really, like, allowed me, it just took a lot off of me.
Totally.
I guess. And because there's that saying, like, we'll sleep when we're dead.
Yeah.
Right. And he totally just, like, this dude just totally destroys that.
I would destroy that too.
Yeah, because basically what he's saying is your longevity actually decreases by not getting enough sleep. And so it's like these people who are, like, bragging about all the sleep they're not getting. It's like, this is actually super harmful. And the last few days I've been getting, like, such good sleep for whatever reason. And it's like, yeah, it's just, I feel much more even keel. Kind of like what you're saying.
It's even keel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not, for me, and being as high energy, in my periods of stress, I tend to get very reactive. And when I'm not, like, I just feel less reactive. Mm-hmm. And I think at the end of the day, no matter who you are, where you are, how you live, what you believe, that we all want to be more calm.
Yeah.
You know, we all want to be less reactive and more in control of, like, how we respond to a situation. Mm-hmm. Because, wow, I'm just, like, putting it all together, saying that out loud, for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels good to sleep. And what I love about the outdoors, too, is, like, at least for me, it's, like, a different level of sleep, right?
Yes. Can I tell you about a quick study really quick? Because it's about sleeping in the outdoors. So, guys, I'll send David the link so maybe he can post it. But there is a great study from the University of Utah. A psychologist was doing his PhD on studying basically creativity, work efficacy, and test scores after students have spent time in the outdoors. So he did it through, like, a quantitative test, like, you know, electrodes and all that kind of stuff. And so he like took their kind of scores, if you will, before, and then they went out backpacking for, I think it was like 2 or 3 nights. I'll make a long story short. After they spent 3 days unplugged, okay, so no artificial light. Mm-hmm. That's what he was using. No artificial light.
Oh, yeah. No
artificial light, and then, you know, open spaces, like hiking and camping, basically. That their test scores went up like 40%. They reported being like 35% less reactive. They felt way more creative. And again, he has his systems and he talks about that. They felt way more calm. Like, that was the big thing that he put in the study, was all these students just felt calm.
Yeah.
Think about that. Like, when do we actually feel calm sometimes? I mean, if you live in a city, like, you don't really experience what calmness is until you actually go into nature. You know, like, David, I've been floored on my clients that I've taken on retreats that are like, I've never felt like this before.
Wow. Never.
And I'm over here, like, crying, like, I know, it's just so amazing. You know, just, I've never felt this calm after day 2 or 3. So, before, I think it's also one of those easy, inexpensive, like therapies.
Yeah.
You don't have to go pay $10,000 to go help your mind. Like, go into nature for 2 days, bring a great book. I mean, I'm smiling this big right now because it's just, it joys me to know that, like, that's always available.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's so, yeah. How often would you recommend, like, or what's working for you?
Yeah,
I guess.
that's a good question.
Like, yeah, in terms of just getting outside. Because I think for me, that's something I'm always working on too, is like, all right, maybe I'll get a little bit outside every day, like 30 minutes to an hour of sun.
Oh, yeah.
And then trying to figure out, like, what's the right balance between, like, okay, maybe a weekend trip, maybe do one of those, like, every couple months or something. Like, what's do you see as the ideal amount? Mm-hmm.
I like to look at things, I try to look at things as objectively for most populations, because I know my situation is different. This is my job, and I do spend more time outside. But I think from all my research and all my experience over the last, like, 10, 15 years, I think 20 minutes a day of just being outside. Mm-hmm. It does not mean you have to go hike, go work in your garden, go for a walk around your neighborhood. 20 minutes a day, like, does enormous amounts of benefits. It's one of those things, it's like exercise. 20 minutes a day for a month is better than 3 hours one weekend, and then the rest of the month you're staying inside.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Same benefit. Vitamin D, 20 minutes a day. Fresh air, no pollutants, 20 minutes a day is doing that same thing for you. But in terms of, like, kind of, I call them, like, micro adventures, like those 1 night, 2 night things, I think every, like, 6 weeks.
Every 6 weeks, month and a half or so.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't have to be a 5-10 night adventure. Like, I don't even do, I only do, like, big backpacking trips, like, 10 nights, like, once a year.
Once a year, yeah.
I can't afford to do more right now. But, like, and I'm not, like, complaining. Like, that's just the reality. And, but I do spend 20 minutes.
Do you think you would do more if you could afford it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to get there. I want to get to a point when I feel comfortable doing that. But I feel blessed where I am right now.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't think me doing more right now would help my situation. Like, I think that 20 minutes a day, and me personally, I try to at least once a month go out for 1 night by myself or with a friend. Usually by myself, because that's what I need to recharge. But I think, 20 minutes a day, again, not hiking, just being outside. And then, like, every 6 weeks to 2 months, I go 1 night, 2 nights. And, like, there's so many places, like, within Austin too, Central. There's so many places.
Yeah,
and people forget here. That. People forget that. There's places everywhere, though. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So what do you see as, like, the future of it? Like, what is your vision for your company? And I know you've scaled back the timeline. Or, like, scaled it forward. I don't know what the right wording would be. Increased it. So, yeah, what do you see that? How do you see that playing out more realistically now that you've, been in it like a year and a half?
That's a really good question. So, what my goal is starting in September after I get done with this contract work this summer is I'm going to try to structure it to where I do. Half of my business is going to be corporate or small business retreats. So, for example, there's like a company in Central Texas that has between 8 and 15 employees. They want to take their employees out for a group cohesive bonding experience. I'm going to provide that experience for them. So it's going to be split into half my business is going to be taking small businesses and their employees out, or teams or coaches, whatever that means to them. And then half of my business is going to be my own pre-planned trips that people partake in. They join in on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So, and honestly, that's a mixture. I'm doing that because I do want my business to be sustainable. And, with the pre-planned trips, I get to have a lot of creativity and fun. And it reminds me why I do what I do. And I get to build community around it. But with the corporate side, I get to have a little bit more financial stability, but also have that bigger ripple effect and hopefully, like, showing teams how they can work better by how they can be more cohesive, how they can communicate better just by spending a few days together unplugged.
Yeah, that sounds like a great move.
Yeah, so that's kind of my future for kind of my going into next year plan.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, okay, what are you getting into these people? What kinds of work are you doing with them once they're there? Mm-hmm. Like, do you have any go-to like activities or questions to like break the ice and like, begin to open everyone up? Or like is there any expectation for them to like what are they usually trying to get out of it? I know that I'm just throwing questions at you. No,
it's okay.
Like
it's great.
1,000 miles
an
hour.
It's okay.
But I'm thinking it through, right?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that no matter whether it's corporate, individual, or community, the biggest mission of my business is to instill a sense in every person that comes along that if they actually immerse themselves in any element of nature, that often they can find the own tools for them to be resilient in life. Number one. Number two, that they learn and feel that just being their wild, childlike selves is accepted and celebrated.
Yeah. So just being a space for that to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I want people to feel that they witness with the group how wonderful just them being themselves is. Like, they're supported in being themselves. So I often open my retreats with a group conversation like, hey, like, we're here to be honest and open and totally respectful with each other. Like, I've never had a problem, and I don't tolerate any sort of like disrespect, but I've never had that problem. No one has ever been disrespectful. I think that people that want to go on these retreats are already wanting to learn how to be more open and be more receiving. So we've had some starry-eyed and Big Bend wonderful group chats, but really I open that as a discussion. And sometimes, depending on the retreat, I bring speakers, like meditation specialists or breathwork specialists or yoga instructors, but all with the element of coming back to, the wonderful element of being a child, being simple, communicating as a group, and working together. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, no, it totally did.
Like, I want people to have a fucking fun time in the most healthy way. Like, think of it as like an adult nature party.
Yeah.
Like, without the drugs and alcohol, it's just like, but I want people to feel high and happy, like being themselves, helping each other, but also with like the simplicity of like just nature. They don't have books hopefully they have books, but they don't have things that they're attaching value to, and they can see how happy they can be without those things.
Wow. That's great. That's great, Cristina.
I'm smiling because I just like, that's exactly, yeah. Like, I want people to know that really, wow, this sounds so cliche, but like your contentment and your value. I don't like to say happiness because I don't think life is all about just being happy all the time. Yeah. It's being content. It's being aware and present. And I think that if people can feel that after my experiences, then like I've done my job.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I mean, we could go on forever.
I know, man. I'm in flow now. Wait, can I ask you a question?
Please do.
I don't know if it's, what are you reading right now? Because I feel like you always have good books. Or what's a book? Or because I read like a book a week. So what's a book you'd recommend?
Oh, wow.
Right now.
Well, honestly, I'm a pretty slow reader.
Okay.
I think the books that I pick up, I like really want to understand them, and so I go very, very slowly through.
Oh, okay.
And so we've discussed a lot of the books that you've read, like Sapiens.
Yes.
And Flow.
Yeah. Flow.
Yes, these are really good ones. I'm on like the final chapters of Jordan Peterson's book, who's the guy I've been talking about.
Write that down.
He wrote this book called 12 Rules to Life, which I'd highly recommend. And then I've been actually reading these dark fantasy books.
That's
by
awesome.
This dude who lives in Austin. I met him at ABP. I call him King Robinson, but his name's Robinson.
Wait,
and
what's the?
Yeah, I'll have him. So I'll have him on the podcast. But
okay.
his book is called The Book of Locke.
Okay.
And it's a dark fantasy series. Everyone should check it out.
No, I love fantasy. Mistborn. Have you heard of Mistborn series? Oh my God, that's...
No, this is like the first time I've really gotten, because I didn't read any like Harry Potter. I'd like totally skip that. Yeah.
So
I get a lot of crap for
that.
But yeah, for some reason I've been really just enjoying his writing and like getting into that fantasy element, like that fiction element, because I do think that is something I'd like to dive into one day, possibly. But yeah, that's a fun thing that I think you could get into.
Okay, great. So George Peterson, and then
Jordan Peterson.
Oh, Jordan Peterson.
Then, and I'll give you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give you the Book of Locke.
Awesome.
And we'll have him on one day. But Cristina, this was great. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. This was so fun.
Yeah, this was great. And we'll have you back on again.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, David.
Peace. Well, that was a fun one. If you enjoyed it as much as I did, please head over to iTunes, subscribe if you haven't already to the podcast, and consider giving 30 seconds of your time to leave an honest 5-star review. This helps other people discover the podcast and join in on this process of self-discovery and reconnecting with humanity. So, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week, next Wednesday. All right. Peace.